Throughout all of history, the world was peaceful and didn't have any 12-year-old fat gingers screaming slurs into their mics on Call of Duty. But one day, a man by the name of Reggie Fils-Aimé came up with a genius idea. As we all know, the NES was the first video game console ever made by Reggie. And the game that came with that pile of plastic is Mario Brothers. This game made $1 billion quadrillion on launch day. So Reggie single-handedly made the second Mario game titled Mario Brothers 2. But the interesting thing about this game is that it's a reskin of the Japanese game Batson Terry. Can you see the resemblance? This game also sold at least 100 copies, so Reggie Fils-Aimé thought the Nintendos were doing too good and made the Book of Genesis to compete with the Marios. And boy did he really succeed. Miyamoto also created Super Punch-Out around this time to compete with the Sega, the creators of Sonic the Hedgehog. So it was off to the races. Who was better, Nintendo or the Book of Genesis? And they were going all out in this war. Nintendo was comparing graphics, and Sega was coining the catchphrase "F*** Nintendo" and "f***ing Reggie's mom" and shit. It was crazy. Skipping ahead a little bit, Sega loses, Nintendo wins, and Sony wants to make an add-on for the Super NES. Nintendo says, "F*** your stupid discs," and kicks Sony to the curb. So as revenge, Sony makes the best-selling console of all time. You must be thinking to yourself, how did Nintendo, the creators of video games, the founders of Wii Music, compete with Sony? Nintendo responded with a 3-sided dildo with a stick in the middle that made kids' hands bleed. And Sega was doing whatever the f***. Eventually, PS the second one comes out and sells more than any console ever has in history. And Nintendo made a f***ing lunchbox. Microsoft also threw their hat in the ring and made the Xbox. For some f***ing reason. And by the end of this generation, Nintendo was on the brink of extinction. But just then, Reggie, that f***ing madman, remembered Nintendo's catchphrase from the 90s. Nintendo do what Nintendo don't. And then he made the f***ing Wii. Now when the Wii came out, everyone wanted one to play sports. But if you weren't a f***ing pussy, you got an Xbox 360 to scream slurs at children in Call of Duty. I personally think this is the worst generation for video games. So moving along, the PS4 and Xbox One came out at the same time. And it was a battle of the ages, except no one bought an Xbox. And I think Nintendo skipped this generation because they were too frightened of the Soulja Boy handheld made by hit rapper Soulja Boy. It's funny how most people that are watching this probably thought I made that console up, but I didn't. Nintendo was at an all-time low after everyone was Soulja Boying all over them, so they decided to make the Nintendo Switch, and they did it! Reggie beat Soulja Boy in a dance competition, and the rest was history. Oh, and Sony and Microsoft just re-released the Xbox One and PS4 in 4K. And the rest was history.